Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Was it the me?
And we're back.
What up, saucers?
Yes.
What up, little saucy saucers?
Yes. So today is a really important episode.
Yeah.
We're trying to get an expert on board for obvious reasons, but hopefully in the future we will, because we have a couple in mind that we're aiming for. Manifest destiny. They will come to us. However, we have done extensive research on this, and it is an important topic. It is eating disorders today.
Yeah.
So don't tune out, because
Don't tune out.
A, you might not think it affects you, and B, it probably does.
Yeah, I mean, it's really pervasive in our society among women and men. It's not just a female issue. It really is not.
Yes.
And this is really important right now. So I hope you can listen to all these kind of stats that we're going to run by you guys, because you might not have thought about this prior, and this is really important. So if you know anybody that kind of has this, or thinking about it, we're going to have some links at the end too, if you want better resources.
Yeah, and definitely. Oh, also self-reflection. You might look back on a period of your own life and be like, wow, I had disordered eating. Because the thing is, we tend to think straight to anorexia, which is a very serious problem. But disordered eating in and of itself is so expansive. It's not even fully diagnosable on some level. So, we think of bulimia or anorexia, but there's a lot in between. There's orthorexia, which is overly cautious of being overly health conscious and it's really pervasive in the whitewashed wellness world, where, it's well, I'm vegan and blah, blah, blah. And if you go too far with that, it's orthorexia. It's very unhealthy as well. So there's a lot of different versions of these things. So I'm going to blast through a couple statistics that I think we all need to know. According to the American Society for Nutrition, in an article published in February of this year, 2021, eating disorders are on the rise, the prevalence and severity spiking, especially since the start of the pandemic. In 2020, there was a 66% increase in eating disorder hospital admissions.
Fucking crazy.
66%.
I would, it's something that you wouldn't think that would have had such a spike last year, but of course it did.
And this is a 66% increase in hospital admissions. So probably a higher percentage of cases that went up.
Yep.
This is hospital admissions.
Yeah.
So
75%
of people with an eating disorder don't seek professional help. And this is it's way high. And it's, we live in a society that rewards that behavior in women especially. And you can get away with it, so to speak, because, we kind of are built around that expectation, specifically of women. I know this affects a lot of men as well. 13% of women over 50 engage in eating disorder behaviors. And this number is likely way lower. This is what's reported. And, if a lot of people aren't seeking professional help, they're certainly not reporting themselves as having eating disorders. So, and that's women over 50. 30% of people with an eating disorder will have experienced a severe traumatic experience.
Yeah.
And that ties to what we're about to talk to next. But really what eating disorders come down to is control, having control over something in your life. You can control what goes in your body, even if everything else around you is chaos. Anorexia nervosa is associated with the highest mortality rate of all psychiatric disorders, not just eating, psychiatric disorders. 60% of anorexia-related deaths are attributed to sudden cardiac arrest and organ failure. Sudden. So this means you're not developing something that you're watching, and this is out of seemingly nowhere because of what long-term exposure to this disease does. Approximately 24 million people in the United States suffer from an eating disorder, according to the National Association of Anorexia Nervosa and Associated Disorders. Moreover, eating disorders are among the deadliest mental illness, second only to opioid addiction, resulting in approximately 10,200 deaths per year.
And a lot of them, I know, can go hand in hand. We'll have both. We'll have an opioid. And this is the thing, too. And I can't stop thinking about, remember when you were a kid? I mean, it's still happening today, but especially our generation, millennials, when you were a kid, in line at a grocery store, all the fucking rags, the the tabloids that would be like, look at this celebrity. She's so fucking, it's basically like, she's so fucking fat, kill yourself. That's basically what they all said was, you're fat, kill yourself.
All the tabloids were paparazzi shots of women and talking about their bodies.
Yeah, every single one. And you look back, like there was some like Jessica Simpson, like they looked,
my God.
I mean, like, doesn't matter. Like they're all healthy fucking women. It's
thin.
just bananas. Like what we were conditioned to think,
oh my God,
was the epitome of like
beauty and femininity. We're
horrifying.
So skewed, and our mom's generation as well, because you know, with like the 90s supermodels and all of this, which it's unrealistic. And even when women do meet up to those quote unquote standards and have that thin body dysmorphia is real, and they don't even see it. It's like, you're never going to be thin in your own eyes.
Yeah. And it's
psychological disorder.
It's so sad too, because you think, oh, you know, it's not that time anymore. You know, we're getting more woke. We're seeing more, you know, representation, different bodies, you know, on TV or wherever. We're seeing celebrities that are, you know, that are healthy and aren't fucking stick thin. But then you look at the stats, 66%
it's increasing.
Increase.
Social media, Gen Z, eating disorder behavior in Gen Z females is about 50% higher than it was for like the teenagers, 15 to 16-year-old Gen Z. Their eating disorder rates are 50% higher than ours were when we were 15. That's in one generation, 50% higher. It's social media. You're comparing yourselves to these bodies. And also, we can't expect, in recent years, the Me Too movement, first of all, that started a handful of years ago. Second of all, it's not really evolved yet. Third of all, we're tracing back to these issues with women having to have a tiny waist, traces in our fashion episode, at least back to the Victorian era with corsets. So if it took that long to create these problems in women, it's going to take a long time to get rid of it.
Yep. And especially when you're not considering the mental health issues that are contributing to this. And one of that we were talking about, you know, is the control factor. So according to Claire Misko, the chief executive officer of the National Eating Disorders Association, eating disorders thrive in isolation. So Hildy Bruch, a prominent doctor and professor and researcher in the late 1900s, highlighted the role of control in the development and maintenance of eating disorders. It was specifically through her work that the behaviors associated with anorexia nervosa was understood as one's attempt to achieve mastery in one particular area of a life, an otherwise chaotic existence. I mean, think about it. It makes so much sense that you need to figure out how you can control yourself, how to make something make sense in your life. And one of that is easy to do in a world that makes you feel like shit for being yourself anyway, is to have disordered eating. So thus the symptoms of anorexia came to be correlated with an individual's underlying sense of powerlessness in the face of life stressors and general lack of control. Others understood similarly that for those individuals, exerting control over their eating behaviors was perceived as a success in a world where they viewed themselves as a failure in many areas of functioning. The disorder rises to power when one's compulsion to control their eating habits is left unchecked and unrestrained, and they become overrun by their own need for discipline.
That's the thing. And what is revered the most in a capitalistic society? Discipline. Exactly. It's literally like your own willpower, your discipline, and
you can do it.
You can do it. Just keep your nose to just grind it out. Like,
yes, grind it out.
And women especially having, you know, in society in general, women have a lack of control. But then think about people who have. It usually appears in people who have gone through a traumatic experience. Somebody dies. You have an something traumatic, abuse. And that creates, and especially if someone's childhood is in upheaval, this lack of control in your world. And the only thing that you can do to maintain some sense of control in any realm is to control what does or doesn't go in your body.
Yep.
And it's just like, I don't know, it left unchecked. It's just this, it is rewarded too, that self-discipline and self-control, especially for women, it's rewarded. And so if you are consistently receiving that reward from yourself and society, why would you stop?
Yep. And that I feel like that also kind of bleeds into the gym experience, overworking,
Yes.
overworking out when you're
Yep.
just constantly there and nothing else makes you happy
Yes.
unless you're at the gym, just like literally sweating until you pass out.
And it leads to this like really unhealthy obsession with anything food related in general. A majority of people who struggle with eating disorders have either studied nutrition or have expressed interest in nutrition as a field of study,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just this like extreme interest. I want to skip ahead to something. So,
Yeah.
an abnormally high percentage of students studying nutrition suffer from disordered eating. Psychotherapist Sarah Henry, who specializes in eating disorders and body image and is a lecturer in body image and counseling skills for dietitians, offers this insight. When asked what would make someone studying nutrition vulnerable to disordered eating, she responded, "What I've noticed anecdotally is that people who are already vulnerable or highly interested in the nuances of diet are developing problematic relationships with food." It's very, very common. And a number of people that I know who have struggled with eating disorders express a great interest in studying nutrition. And it's seemingly ironic, but it makes perfect sense. And you just yeah, there also is often an interest. So studying nutrition or something personal training and cooking.
Yeah.
So all things that relate to body image, and a lot of people, have this. A lot of people who have or do struggle with eating disorders have this compulsion to like feed other people.
Yes.
And like take care.
Make sure, cook a lot and have food around them.
Yes, and be like, "Do you want a bite? Do you want a bite? Do you want to try this? Please try this, please."
Yes.
But they have an obsession with food, but they don't want to consume it. Or it's a mess.
But there's a lot of fear-driven beliefs that we want to go over to that have to do with this. So losing control over one's body. So that is, if I put on weight, I will have failed in one area I thought I could control. So it's like, what if I actually start to enjoy food? What if I relax and then can't stop putting on weight? What if I have to buy bigger clothes?
Yeah.
It's like,
these are the thoughts that go through. And I have had conversations with friends who have struggled with this, and there are actual thoughts that go through their head. They're really terrified of these things. Like, what if, like it's the fear of losing control.
Yeah.
What if I can't stop?
Exactly.
And I put on weight and losing control. So that's losing control over one's body, also losing control of one's identity. This will change how other people see me. And these thoughts are, what if others comment on my weight? Whether good or bad, I'll lose their support and they'll change the way they look at me. Who will I be without my eating disorder? It will be difficult facing the world with my new identity as a recovered person. How will I be able to face the world? I'll be left defenseless with nothing to hide behind. And I have also heard that, when you're struggling with something, with an eating disorder, even if someone compliments you in a seemingly positive manner, like, "Oh, you're so skinny," that feeds into it just as much as if someone makes a comment about you putting on weight. It's like, but it's a double-edged sword, because you tell someone they're so skinny, that's the reward. The reward area is lighting up, like, it's working, I'm doing it. The control is paying off. I'm being rewarded for this control.
It's also the word, like with the wording that's being used. "Oh my God, you look so skinny, you look great."
Yes.
Skinny is a positive
It's
thing.
always said as a compliment.
Goal. And it's the same thing as if someone, lost weight, lost like 10 pounds or whatever, like, "Oh my God, you look so great."
Literally,
wow.
people drop 10 pounds from being sick.
Yeah.
And people come with a compliment of, "Wow, you look so great." It's like, "I almost died, but thank you."
Yeah.
Like, it's always considered a compliment to call someone thinner, whether or not that is the healthy weight for them.
Yeah. And this is a lot of varying degrees too, because, I've been very, small my life, and but that does not mean I haven't had,
Body issues.
body issues.
Yeah.
It can come no matter if you're prepared for it, no matter if you think because they're too small or whatever, tall, doesn't matter. It's going to happen to them, in some shape or form. And
it's relative.
100%. Like I've had so many people be like, "Oh my God, you're so skinny, you're so thin, you're so thin." And it's like, okay, that's, I guess, my privilege in this life, right? To know that. But don't think that that's not in the back of my head, that like, if I do gain weight, which is perfectly fine and healthy, that I'm going to lose that. I'm going to lose
that part of your identity.
that kind of compliment that I could, I would get from people that's, that would feed whatever part of my ego needed feeding. And that's fucking horrible.
It is. It's, and the thought that like, what if I have to buy bigger clothes?
Yeah.
I challenge you to find anybody who hasn't had to do that.
Yeah.
I've had to do that.
Yeah.
I remember like my sophomore year of college, I lived in a sorority house and we had a chef there and all I ate was cereal and snacked till like midnight till, I don't know. I definitely gained weight sophomore year and I noticed it. And I'm not an overweight person. Obviously same, like always get told you're thin. But for me, I definitely see it when I look back in photos. I didn't feel good in my body. And it's like, just because you might be, it's all relative to someone else. So I would, bought bigger clothes because I didn't want to feel them like restricting me because it reminded me of how fat I felt. It's like,
yep,
it's a mess.
Yeah. Another fear-driven belief is a fear of losing control of one's emotions. So it's like, I will lose my safety net. And like questions would be, how else will I feel special? How else will I cope with my feelings? Exactly what I said. Like, how else will I punish myself?
Yeah.
Like how else will I feel special? It's like,
right.
If I'm not getting those kind of instant gratifications of compliments, you're so skinny or whatever.
And the punishing is interesting because, it's not like you're consciously necessarily thinking of it like that, but that's really what it is. It's like, well, I ate this today, so I gotta it's a control. With your control and your willpower, you can punish yourself back into submission.
Horrible.
This is really important. Long-term health risks, because like we said, you can exist with an eating disorder for decades and never address it, never seek help, just live that way because your society rewards you. However, there are long-term health risks of anorexia that you do not see on the surface that are terrifying. It's taken very seriously in the mental health community because of the damage it inflicts. Because the damage it inflicts extends to nearly every part of the body. These effects can range from minor infections and poor general health to serious life-threatening medical problems. Because it often strikes young people, some of these conditions may carry over into adulthood and last an entire lifetime, just like the disease. So for the heart disease is the major cause of death in people with severe anorexia. The bones. One of the top long-term health risks of anorexia has to do with our bones. Nearly 90% of women with anorexia experience a condition known as osteopenia, translates as a loss of bone calcium. Up to 40% of people who suffer from anorexia may also face osteoporosis, which is the more developed stage of that, advanced loss of bone density. Neurological problems. In severe cases, the long-term health risks of anorexia may result in suffering nerve damage. This is interesting. So it affects the brain and other parts of the body. As a result, these nervous system conditions can include seizures, disordered thinking, numbness or tingling in the hands and feet. And these are all like long-term results of anorexia that seem disjoint. You go in and you're like, oh, I have loss of bone density. That's normal with women. Oh, I have, the blood. This is anemia is due to starvation. One of the most common conditions related to anorexia is anemia. A major blood problem is created by dangerously low levels of vitamin B12. All of these things that you go in and no doctor is going to say, oh, you have anemia, you're anorexic, or you should, it's all connected though. Numbness in the fingers.
So wild.
Gastrointestinal issues. Anorexia puts incredible stress on the digestive system. Stomach bloating and constipation are very common among people with anorexia. And then the last one, organ failure. This is terrifying because it can come out of nowhere. In the very late stages of severe anorexia, the body's organs simply stop working. The first major indications of organ failure are often high blood levels of liver enzymes. And I read that in this case, the thing you have to do right away is like a high injection of calories to stop you from dying.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It's also interesting, like the neurological effects, like you said, that you think that wouldn't really think that, like disordered thinking is interesting to me. Like,
and that's body dysmorphia.
Exactly. And, we talked about this in last week's episode with the, framework and how basically you are brainwashing yourself. You're training your mind to basically think of everything as a failure. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you can have that control, so you can have that reward. you know?
Yeah. And sometimes it's so that you can feel superior to others or to other, because you have that control over yourself.
Yep.
And it can lead to like this um, disdain for those who don't, which is like a judgment call on people who maybe are overweight or just don't have that level of self-control, because that's such a, like, at least I have this kind of control.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just like
Right.
it's psychologically, yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah, you can think higher of yourself,
Yeah.
and that's a reward, right? You're rewarding yourself for having that amount of control because you're seeing your peers not
Exactly.
having that control. So if I can just make, tofu and lettuce
Yeah.
like for the rest of my life
Exactly.
and work out 20, 10
Yep.
hours a day or whatever, like then
Mhm.
everything will be right when it's not. There's so many factors and so many things that could happen to you if you don't get help.
Yeah.
So basically, if you're struggling, if you know someone who's struggling, BetterHelp.com is a really good resource to find specialists, therapists, people who can help you get through all of this.
And that's like, you can start your conversation with them via text,
Yeah.
via chat online. It doesn't have to be in person. Everything is virtual these days, but they ask you a couple questions about yourself, the challenges you're facing. You have a private username and your information is encrypted and secret, and it's not
Yeah.
going to get out there. It's based on your need. They match you with somebody. And that one, I think, is what, $40 a week.
Yeah.
But there's financial assistance available for it. And there's also, that's just one. There's free sources too, like Talkspace
Yeah.
they're not free, but they have some, you get like a couple of months free on trial. There's a lot of online therapy sources, especially that came up during the pandemic and that accommodate for people that can't pay full price.
Yep. There's also the Eating Disorder Recovery podcast. It's a really good podcast where hosts discuss the psychology of eating disorders, body image, and recovery processes for a variety of eating disorder diagnoses. So, please check them out. We're going to link them in our show notes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we wanted to do this episode because, I mean, it's really important. There's not one there's no way you don't know somebody that's struggling with this,
Exactly.
whether it's you or somebody else. And there's varying degrees of this.
And asking for, it says 75% of people who have these disorders don't seek help. If you're intimidated by the thought of like going to a therapist and admitting you have an eating disorder, that's a lot.
Of course.
But you can literally listen to this podcast. Just start to educate yourself, the Eating Disorder Recovery podcast. Educate yourself on what the effects of this are. You still have control. You will always have control over your own body. So try to release that fear and just start educating yourself and then make your decision from there. No one's going to force you, but like, maybe I do better with my nutrition. Maybe I stop thinking this way. Maybe I try to do it at your own pace, but do something.
Yep. And you're not alone. And we're here. We're with you. We love you.
So the charity nonprofit for this week is The Chain, the-chain.us, New York-based nonprofit that provides peer support for women working in the fashion and entertainment industries who are struggling with or recovering from an eating disorder. The Chain was founded in December 2017 by Christina Grasso and Ruthie Friedlander, both in recovery from anorexia after they encountered a need for a support network that addresses the challenges in eating disorder recovery unique to the fashion and entertainment industries. The Chain aims to create a safe place for this population to share their experiences and gain insight through conversation, support, and community building. Since its inception, The Chain has partnered with Cynthia Rowley, Chill House, Outdoor Voices, Postmates, Sunday Forever, Spring Place, Roxanne Asulin, and Laborde. So they're doing a lot. And also the Poof, at the Poof, P-O-U-F, is Christina's Instagram. She speaks out a lot about this and how recovery is not a destination. It's a permanent journey. She offers a lot of support on her page alone. So
yeah, we'll link her as well. So also shout out Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
We're on Patreon, guys. So if you like episode topics like this, let us know.
Yes.
And if you're a patron, you can also recommend some episode topics. So $3, $7, $11, you can figure out what works for you. And then, we like to do more of what you guys like. And so let us know regardless. Shout out to Steve and Nigel for being OG patrons. So follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the SOS Pod. Subscribe to us on YouTube with SOS with Molly and Alyssa. Rate and review us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google. It helps us reach more people when you leave a review. So,
yes. I'm Molly Cottrell.
I'm Alyssa Rosano.
And here's the Turning Meltdown
into Magic.